Hello students, today we are going to explain about globalization. This is part 2. This is for 10th class CBSE as well as 10th class the state board. In the last video we explained about globalization and what are the benefits of globalization and why every country nowadays is already in globalization. Why maximum countries are present taking the concepts of globalization. And today we are going to explain what are the different dimensions of globalization. Globalization has economic dimension, cultural dimension, political dimension, and religious dimension. We have to see the political dimension of globalization. Before that, we have to know about Arab Spring. The globalization, the present method of globalization is explaining about changing of political trends in the worldwide. Example, 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, in all these 300, 400 years onwards, we have been observing different type of ruling systems in the world. Example, monarchy in England, autocracy in Russia, and dictatorship in Germany, and fascism in Italy. In this way, many different types of administrative systems are observed in different countries. But among all those systems, compared to all those systems, we are strongly believing that democracy is the best method of administration in the country. That's why present maximum people are requiring and they are going to implement democracy in their country, like India. And when through this TV channels and through this newspapers, through this globalization methods, even this political changes are touch with Africa and West Asian countries also. Example, Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt. In these African countries, in the olden days there was a system of dictatorship. Now that dictatorship and other systems are being uprooted by them. So uprooting of the dictatorship and re-implementing the democracy in those countries is the present change which we have been observing in the recent African countries. So that is to be called as Arab Spring. Removal of or uprooting of dictatorship and implementing democracy. It means globalization methods are even inspiring the African countries' political trends also. And we see now the economical dimension of globalization. Already we discussed interconnecting of all the world countries through trade, business, commerce, including exports and imports, is to be collectively called as globalization. It was begun in 19th century and slowly one by one, all the world countries are slowly learning what is the meaning of globalization and why we have to enter into globalization methods, all these things. And we see globalization economic dimension is what? It is nothing but observing the resources, economic resources of one country and using resources by other country. By using the resources, it wants to manufacture the articles and selling the articles in different countries. It means by this globalization, we are observing the important economical change in the world countries is using the resources in different ways. Using the resources for manufacturing articles. Which article, which raw material is not available in our country, that we have to bring from other countries in the form of trade, commerce, exports and imports. So globalization is including exports and imports, selling and purchasing activities. Nearly 150 million families in the European continent, they have come out in order to explain about their business trade activities to the Asian and other countries in the world. They are coming to the different countries and explaining what are the resources available in the country, where they are coming, and what type of articles they are manufacturing with the resources. So in this way, slowly a business trade dealings are began from one country to other country, and this is reducing the gap between one and other nations in the world. Though the actual necessity of one country with others is what? No country has almost articles in the world. No country can satisfy with its own commodities. That's why definitely it is compulsory for us depending one country on others. So this is the key point in globalization, that the dependence of one country on others is now going on in the form of globalization through trade, commerce and business, exports and imports. Suppose we want to understand the main concept of globalization. Just to take our neighboring countries of India, example China. Chinese, so many years back, they began to travel towards south and they crossed the Himalayas, entered in our Indian borders, mingled with our Indian people. Slowly, they are taking friendly relationship with our Indian people and began to learn our languages, cultures, attitudes, and learning about our economical conditions, cultural conditions, political conditions, religious conditions. Based on these terms, based on these different dimensions, after coming to our country, Chinese stayed so many years, and in this training they got different concepts related to our Indians. What type of articles liked by Indians, and what is the economical capacity of Indians, what type of articles required by Indians, and what type of articles are given preference by Indians. In all these different dimensions observed by Chinese. As a result, what is going on in our India, after learning about different thoughts, about different ideas belonging our Indians, all these ideas learned by Chinese. Now what is going on? Entirely our Indian commerce, business, trade is being completely converted by Chinese. It means nearly 60 to 70% of now, suppose we take the toys especially. In the toys business, nearly 60 to 70% of the toys trade is being done in our India by Chinese. It means completely the business is under their hands. How it is going on? Why Indians liked Chinese articles? It means they learned what was the culture of India, what type of articles are liked by Indians. All these things, they stayed in our India sometime and they learned our attitudes. Then it is making possible. And as a result, China got a monopoly over our Indian trade. especially in the form of toys, plastic goods, electronic goods. So this is best example. It means they did not come to India just to sell their articles. Before this activity, they observed our culture, economical conditions, political conditions, social conditions. So that's why what we discussed, globalization has a number of dimensions. All of the different thoughts about our Indians were learned by Chinese. That's why they successfully entered in our India and they sold their articles. In the same way, in the world, entire the world, many countries approached to many other countries in order to sell their articles. Already we discussed it in the first video of this lesson. Globalization is nothing but a knife which comprises sharpness on both sides. If we learn the globalization methods completely, then we can use the globalization methods and we implement the methods positively for the economical development of our country. Otherwise, it is making our country just as a raw material supplying country. From 17th century up to 19th century, what had done in our India by Europeans? Same. Our agro products, our iron ore, our copper, our coal, and our other raw materials are exported to European countries. And that's why after this entering of globalization, every country began searching for raw material, searching for markets. Which country is purchasing our articles? Which country is the suitable country for giving raw materials in lot of quantities? That was successfully observed by them, and that's why they are coming to the raw material supplying countries. And once upon a time they made our India was also a raw material supplying country. Now India is able to compete with those countries. It means India is updating its knowledge. India is updating its technology. The main theme in globalization is technology. By using internets, by using computers, updating every sector is also a part of globalization. So in globalization we have to learn importantly what? Production across the countries. Production across the countries. So production across the countries is doing by what? MNCs. The full form is multinational corporation companies. So a company which is organizing the production and selling activities, producing the activities, distribution of the articles, all these are doing by a company. More than one country is to be called an MNC. In our India also some MNC companies are there successfully running in our India. Example, we take Infosys, which is IT sector, and we take Sundaram Fasteners, which is producing nuts and bolts, and we take the Tata Motors, which is producing automobiles. So these are examples. The same way Asian Paints is an Indian company, but due to high demand it is successfully running in more than 17 countries in the world. It means Asian Paints and other articles, why they had huge demand? Number one is quality. Quality maintenance is important if we wanted to run our company in other countries. Number two is rate. Suppose the rate of the article is convenient for the all countries, then the product is demanded by many country people. Number 3 is goodwill. It means we should not compromise in maintenance of quality and using of the raw material. And number 4, updating our technology. It means taste of the people in different countries is in a different way. Example, we take a bike company. Suppose Mahindra and Mahindra was a jeep and trucks and cars manufacturing company. In the year of 1995, from America, one more MNC company came to India with a 1700 crores investment. Slowly, Ford Motors company, which is the American MNC company, it has a tie-up with Mahindra and Mahindra. With the collaboration of Mahindra and Mahindra, both Mahindra and Mahindra and Ford Motors company tie up each other. And if we see in this tie-up agreement, what is the main concept of Ford Motors? So Ford Motors is a new company unknown to the Indian society. And Mahindra and Mahindra is our local car manufacturing company. That's why slowly, in order to get goodwill, in order to introduce itself to the Indian people, Ford Motors company collaborate with our Indian car manufacturing company Mahindra and Mahindra. And it purchased some shares in the company, and as a result both the Mahindra and Mahindra and Ford Motors both collectively wanted to manufacture the cars. Even more than 27,000 cars already sold by Mahindra and Mahindra, and it was leading in that time, 1995. That's why that leading company was shared by Ford Motors. Both companies tie up and collectively manufactured articles. After some years later, when Ford Motors also got a strong base in our Indian people, in the minds of Indian people, then slowly it divided from Mahindra and Mahindra and came back. It wanted to produce articles without the collaboration of Mahindra and Mahindra. As a result, what happened? Ford Motors cars selling percentage is enormously increased, and its effect shown on Mahindra and Mahindra. So Mahindra car company selling percentage was enormously reduced. Ford Motors selling capacity has been increased. The same way we can say some more examples. There was a edible oil producing company in our India called Parak Foods. Parak Foods, which is an edible oil supplying country. And to compete with the company Cargill Foods, one American company came. Both companies tie up each other and producing the oil and sold oil to the Indian people. Afterwards, some years later, Cargill Foods separated from the Parak Foods and produced articles separately. As a result, the local company incurred loss. It means in this MNC company, Mahindra and Mahindra and Ford Motors, in this example, and Parak Foods, Cargill Foods in the second example also, what we learned, local companies incurred loss. Nowadays, we learned what actually, when we invite an MNC company which is organizing, producing, selling activities of articles doing more than one country is called MNC company, I told you. So an MNC company is being invited by India, it is causing for incurring loss to the Indian factories, Indian companies. That's why our India began to put some restrictions on the foreign companies. This is nothing but called as trade barriers. We have to know why trade barriers are putting by India on other countries, and what is the benefit, what is the loss by putting trade barriers. So all these things we are going to learn about trade barriers, losses and gains in our next video. Thank you for watching.